Shalom, everybody. So we're still under the light of the full moon, and the past few readings that I've done, not just for myself, but for other people, have really all been pointing to the same theme, that it's really time to bring the light into the darkness, to really shed a light on the darkness, to bring the awareness to the subconscious mind and see what is hiding there. What's something that we haven't been looking at about ourselves? What aspect of ourselves have we been denying? What aspect of ourselves have we been hiding? And so I think it's a really good time, based on these readings and all this data that I've been collecting, I think it's a really good time to really face those things that we dislike about ourselves the most. What is the thing about yourself that you like the least? And don't think about this as such a negative thing. Oh, we shouldn't, pick ourselves apart. We shouldn't, focus on those negative things. No, let's go there with right judgment, with also tempering compassion, right? To balance compassion with judgment. Let's take that ability to do that into our subconscious mind and see what's hiding there and face it once and for all. What are those things, if you can think of them, what are those things when you reflect upon yourself? What are those things you don't like to look at? When you feel yucky, when you have that yucky vibration, and you are initiating that feeling, what is bringing that up? What is causing that yucky feeling? Most likely you're embodying an energy that you just don't want to embody, and you're receiving that as a reflection in your environment. And so for me, I can think of some things that have come up for me in my life, and things that I've worked on and things that I can continue to work on. But for me and for most of us, it can be difficult to see those most disliked reflections of self because we are so consciously in denial of them. They're the ones that are the most hidden, the most deeply buried. And so, yeah, of course, it's going to be hard to discover those things when we've been working so hard to deny them and to keep ourselves from seeing the truth of it. And so a good way to dig those things up would be to consider those reflections in our lives of the people that are closest to us, because everything is one, everyone is one, and everybody is a reflection of self. So maybe start there. Look at the people you're closest with. What are things that bother you the most about these people? And then look within. What is that telling you about yourself? Why are you seeing that? This is one way we can discover parts of ourselves that we don't like. And even then, we'll still be in denial. Well, I really don't like this about this person, or I really don't like that about that person. But that's not me. Either way, look at that thing. Look at that trait that you don't like. Okay, so you think you don't have it. That's fine. What is the opposing thought? Because sometimes it's easier for the ego to look at the light than it is to look at the dark, right? So let's say we have a friend, Mary. And Mary's a liar. And we don't like that Mary's a liar. And so we look at ourselves and we say, what part of me is reflecting that? When and how am I a liar in my own reality? Maybe even inwardly. Maybe it's not even outward. Maybe it's not even in this material world. But what inside of me or outside of me or both is in denial? What part of me is the liar? And then your ego will say, oh, I'm not a liar. No way, I'm not a liar. Okay, well, what's the opposite of lying? Telling the truth. Honesty. I am honest. So you can say the opposing thought. And that feels good. And whether or not you were or are a liar, in that moment you're freed. You're saved. It's your salvation. The opposing thought becomes the salvation. Either way, it's a positive thing to discover and rediscover again and again that virtuous path, those virtues. And so ultimately we'll neutralize those negative qualities that we've built within us whether or not we're in denial of them. And so I think that's a really positive and gentle way to do that with the self, to really dive deep and not just find those parts of the self that we don't like, because again, sometimes it's hard and we're in denial, but to heal them regardless. To do the digging in one way or another, and ultimately find ourselves at that space of being healed and whole. So again, either we can just once and for all face those parts of ourselves that we're already conscious of for one reason or another that we don't like. You know, those parts of ourselves that we've been running from, just face it right now, tonight. Use this light of the full moon to do that. The universal energies are very supportive from more than one angle, for sure, to be able to do this work tonight and in the coming days. And this is what this part of our cycle, this season, is for right now. This moon being full as it is. This is the pinnacle. It's the perfectly supportive environment within and without to be able to do this work of finding and facing those parts of ourselves that we don't like. That's where the work lies. And again, because the mind is a tricky thing, if we are in denial of those parts and we can't find them, step 2, look to those around you you're closest with, your reflections. You can even see it in strangers if you look close enough, but of course it's easier to look at those reflections of the people we spend the most time with. What do you see in them that you don't like? And what does that say about you? So ultimately you are bringing it back to yourself. It's like a roundabout way of facing those things you don't like. And even then the ego will say, well, I'm not those things that I see in them that I don't like. And that's where step 3 comes in. You just accept that, scientifically speaking, there is some part of you, however subconscious, that does reflect that. It must. And so instead of worrying about why or how, we drop that all together and we simply move to the final step, the solution, of considering the opposing thought. Again, if the negative trait we're looking at is lying or deceit, we would look at honesty and we would sit with that and we would embrace that and we would focus on that. So you see, ultimately, it doesn't matter if you find those things and face them, you know, the things we don't like. If you can't find them, don't try so hard. Don't kill yourself over it. The point is, I think, that we'll always come back to the virtuous path if we're walking toward a path of healing. It's best when we can, you know, get the most details, get the most, you know, like a scientist, observe and really get as much material as we can to work with. But it's not necessary. Ultimately, the path is always the highest one. There's only one. There's only one path. But it's really important to explore those hidden parts of ourselves one way or another. That's my reflection for the light of this full moon. I did a couple of writings today, so feel free to check out my Facebook wall. And there are new videos on my YouTube channel, so if you're not subscribed yet, it's youtube.com/RebeccaMagic. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. Happy traveling within.